around Coach Mack in the 2 o'clock hour to talk about the Titans who were on the practice squad or on the practice field today. Teron Davenport, and I saw some other reporters too. Julio Jones is wearing a uniform. He's out there running. He's running.
Oh. Well, there was a sighting.
There's a sighting of him wearing a uniform in practice. So Julio Jones. Also, there's been sightings the last couple of days of A.J. Brown working in individual periods, and this comes off the heels yesterday of Adam Schefter's report that there was some kind of a knee something, some kind of slight knee injury or whatever, but the report from Adam Schefter that would not stop him from starting the season healthy. In the last 2 days, he's been out, at least in individual periods that reporters have seen. And somebody said yesterday he had naked knees, like no red sleeve, Blaine, not that band that some guys wear around their knee, nothing like that. Both days, him going hard in the individual period. So if you're like, I don't know what that means, when they run through the squares or they do footwork and drills where they just catch a ball on air from someone throwing them passes. So not something where they're out there hitting other people, but the individual periods where they kind of get warmed up for practice. So he's doing stuff. We're still almost a couple of weeks away from the first game of the season. There are guys who are returning to practice. I made this note yesterday. A.J. Brown was back limited. Jeff Swaim is back. Nate Davis, Ben Jones, Danico Autry, which I loved hearing that. Marcus Johnson was back. Matthias Farley. Also Kendall Lamb, who I think a lot of people thought, okay, Kendall Lamb's the right tackle for this team. They paid a little money for him. And then he gets hurt. We haven't seen him for a few days. So it's good to have him back competing at that right tackle spot, Kendall Lamb, too.
Man, so we got some starters back there on offense.
Yeah, and Danico Autry, which I loved hearing.
Yeah, well, okay, we got a whole bunch of guys back. So I think there's a sense of, okay, comfort now in the offense. Let's moving forward, get our timing down and everything else so that everybody's ready to rock and roll come week one, whether that be in playing a series in the last game, not playing at all, but at least you're getting that practice time in. And you can't duplicate games and getting your timing, but you definitely can get back in shape and be confident that it can come pretty quickly once you start playing in games.
Other thing we needed to do, and our director of content, Blaine Bishop, reminded me of this as we sat down today, is a lot of our neighbors, a lot of our neighbors to the west of here hurting right now. Have been through a lot, and you said, man, we definitely need to just say something to let them know we're thinking about them.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Prayers for all those dealing with the flooding, man. It was horrific, and we just wanted to say that we'll be praying for you here from 104.5, Blaine Mickey, and all the crews here at every time slot. That we'll definitely be supporting you guys throughout this tough time. Man, it was just kind of crazy to see all that going on, and without saying that we'll be thinking about them and praying for them.
Absolutely. One thing about this state of Tennessee, everybody, when something happens, people from all over the state rally to help and to support wherever it is. That's the Tennessee. I mean, the volunteers
always coming together here in the South, right?
Yes, they do.
They step it up.
There's already people on the ground there who are helping out, and we look forward to seeing. I'm sure our radio station is looking into some different ways to help. We got an email today, and I need to look that up, and I will, giving us some ways to share information about where you can help, and I'll get that email pulled up here from our guy, Rich Ferris, who's our promotions director, and as usual, it's taken a long time for it to call up. But Community Foundation of Middle Tennessee is a great place. So they're saying that you can go. There's a ways to help page on all of our websites. According to Rich, so 104.5 The Zone, there'd be a page there that would tell you how to help the Community Foundation of Middle Tennessee, supporting communities and the nonprofits that also help. Basically, I guess they're helping the people who help. If you want, you can go to cfmt.org, or call 615-321-4939. And I appreciate our guy Rich sending this to me. But if you want to help, go to that website or call that phone number. But we wanted to make sure to start the show and to make sure that we are getting the word out and trying to help those people.
And we'll tweet out something from the Blaine and Mickey account.
Yep.
Just so you have all the information. You can go right to it, and that way you don't have to search for it here during the break.
Absolutely. I will. I'll get this together and we'll put it out on Blaine and Mickey for sure. That way people can see the information. This news coming out of Chicago, Blaine, we wondered who might be the starting quarterback for the Bears or who might the Titans see. Matt Nagy said today that Justin Fields is going to start and play about a half against the Titans, and they're rolling with Andy Dalton. They said he was
as the starter.
As the starter to start the season. Yeah, not going to play in the game.
Well, and it's kind of interesting. Everybody just is making this assumption that Fields is going to be the starter. They're thinking he's playing coy here. As much as I probably agree with everybody else that Fields probably should be the starter, I think they're thinking, hey, we're a playoff team last year. If we just hold the fort a little bit, we can go with a veteran quarterback. And we don't know who actually knows the offense better. I mean, we saw Fields get hit there and get decapitated there, and he's supposed to turn protection. Here, I'm going to give you a good example. Locker. Jake Locker. Same thing happened to him versus the Texans. Didn't turn the protection, didn't know where the blitz was coming from, didn't even know where his hot read was, and got blasted and hurt his elbow or shoulder that game. The non-throwing shoulder. And so that's exactly what happened to Fields. Yeah. So is he actually ready? Does he have the talent? Oh, that's pretty clear to see that. A novice football guy could see that his talent and his upside is there. So it's a matter of, okay, what do you have in front of you? And what do you have on the defensive side? And do you have a running game to help, And I think everybody says their offensive line is lacking. So that tells you, maybe we should lean to Fields, who is more agile. Well, Andy Dalton's not a statue. He's not a runner.
Right.
But he's not a statue. He can maneuver within the pocket. So it's all about that. Now, can he, do the right protections? And then that wouldn't have been a factor on that play. Does he know the offense that much better? So if you think you're a playoff contending team that you were last year, you always are going to side on the air of we're going to go with the veteran until he plays himself out of it. It could be sooner than later, though, with that kind of offensive line. You just don't know. So I really believe him that he thinks that Andy Dalton's the guy. Now, that could always change if Fields goes out there and has we've seen it before, heck performance against the Titans, who have dominated, twos, threes, or whoever they're playing on defense. So if he looks good against the Titans defense, I think then that's going to open some eyebrows. But, hey, Chicago, it's a big market and they expect big things. And if Fields, and to be thinking about it, he could probably be the best quarterback that's ever played in a Bears uniform. And that's hard to say with their history. I'm trying to think of when you think of the Super Bowl shuffle, you think Jim McMahon, okay, well, he was a real good quarterback, but he wasn't a great quarterback. Right. You could say Rex Grossman took him to the Super Bowl. He's not a great quarterback. He's just a good serviceable starting quarterback. You could say Jay Cutler was a real good quarterback, but was he a great quarterback for them? He probably has most of their throwing yardage stats. Can Fields be better than that? And I'm sure it's a whole bunch of other list of guys, and we can go all the way to
Jim Harbaugh
to Vince Evans when I was growing up.
I remember Vince Evans.
So because I got all the Bears game, the Colts weren't in Indianapolis at the time. So the history shows you that he could be, if not the best, one of the best to ever play in the Chicago Bears uniform. With their history. So
isn't that funny?
That's kind of interesting just to even say that he could be that potentially. Wow, man, that's kind of crazy. But then you go back and look, and they really haven't had, a super stud quarterback. I can't recall. Now I'm sure back in maybe before I was born or something like that. But
like Sid Luckman is in the Hall of Fame, but he played in the 40s.
Right. So here in recent modern, the last couple of decades,
right?
Well,
in the modern history of the NFL, which Blaine really since 1970, which is more than 50 years now, if you had to say, okay, who's the Bears' all-time quarterback, everybody's going to pick Jim McMahon.
Yeah.
He's the easy pick, and that's Vince Evans.
I don't even know where his numbers are, like compared to the rest of players. It was because of his moxie, his personality, and he was a winner. And now in college, he threw the ball all over the place. At BYU, but
oh my gosh,
with Chicago, they were a run-based offense with a great defense.
Dude, Jim, I pulled this up. Jim McMahon never in a season threw for 2,400 yards. He never hit 2,400 yards.
And that's crazy. And we all know he can throw the football.
Right.
He proved that in college.
Kids, go to YouTube and Google Jim McMahon BYU and watch that dude chuck it everywhere.
He was followed by then Steve Young to the Detmers. The list goes on and on and on. And all those guys did solid in the NFL. And he won, though. I mean, so.
Hey, at one
and
point.
they had Walter Payton. I mean, come on.
They certainly did. He could hand it to him a lot.
It was great, man.
But
the late, great Walter.
Because they're young kids listening like, BYU, what are you talking about? BYU used to be quarterback U.
Yeah.
Remember Mark Wilson, who played for the Raiders?
Yes.
Jimmy Mack and Jim McMahon and Steve Young were there at the same time.
Isn't that crazy?
At the same place. And Robbie Bosco, who was great. And I mean, they were ridiculous.
It goes on the list. So we can't even come up with a list for the Bears. They're like,
we're naming more classic BYU quarterbacks than Bears quarterbacks.
Yeah, so I think that's what the fan base is thinking here and going, hey, let's just start it now. Let him go through his lumps early. So halfway through the season now, he'll be a much more polished starting quarterback in the National Football League. And I get it. So that is, Nagy's job is on the line. So do you play it? You play the veteran first, let him fail, and then you have the excuse of I had to play a young quarterback? Or do you start off with the young quarterback and put your job on the line with the young quarterback initially and say he needs time to develop?
But it goes.
That's what you sell to the organization.
It goes back to what you said, though.
Base.
If you show the organization, like, this guy's going to get killed, here's him almost getting killed against the Bills. He's going to get killed in a regular season game until we can get him up to speed. Okay, so Andy Dalton, and poor Andy Dalton's like, so I can get killed. But Andy Dalton's seen enough. He'll audible protection over there.
Get rid of the ball.
Just get rid of the dang ball. Yeah. So.
What do they call him? The red what?
Red rifle, right?
Yeah, the red rifle.
I almost said red rocket. The red rifle.
I've been waiting for someone to say that.
I know.
Okay.
Wow, what is that?
I mean, it would just be like a redheaded person throwing a football. Very hard.
I was just making sure it wasn't.
Worth a Google.
No. Don't do it.
I need to Google that? Oh.
Jim McMahon threw for, in his whole career in Chicago, he threw for 11,203 yards. And if we went back 50 years and said, who's the Bears quarterback, everybody's picking him. He threw for 11,000 yards with the Bears. Now, he stayed around long enough. His career total was 18,148 yards. And he played forever, Jim McMahon.
Where's that put him in the Bears? We don't know. The Bears' history as far as yardage. Because most of their quarterbacks weren't there for a long period of time, at least in the last couple of decades. I'm thinking those are the only ones that could have passed him because of, you throw the ball a lot more than you did back in his era.
Well, like the great Bill Wade from Nashville was there in the 60s. He split time between the Bears and the Rams. I bet Bill Wade probably has more passing yards than Jim McMahon. I'm just guessing. I don't know.
Well, we got some breaking news.
If this is sad rock and roll news, then I already know it, Lucas.
It's not sad rock and roll news. It's sad Jaguar fan news.
Okay, tell us. What is it?
Ian Rappaport, Jaguars' first-round running back Travis Etienne suffered a significant tear, a serious Liz Frank injury that knocks him out for the next several months and potentially the season.
Yeah, I was watching that Saints game last night. Jaguars didn't look so good on offense.
The James Robinson show.
Yeah.
That dude was a top 100 player. He's like number 100, James Robinson.
Oh, well, yeah, undrafted.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that happens a lot at running back. I mean, he looks really good. He's still, you got to watch on that. That's good for the Titans.
Okay.
I hate it. I like Etienne, but, hey, I don't want the Jaguars to have anything on offense.
No. All right, we got to take a break, but here you go. If you're picking the Bears quarterback, it should be Jay Cutler. He's all-time by a mile, 23,443. Next is Sid Luckman, who played in the 40s, 14,000 passing yards. He's in the Hall of Fame, 14,686. Sid Luckman is like Mr. Bear, one of them with Walter Payton, Gale Sayers, and Dick Butkus.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Jay Cutler's got the most passing yards. That's what I'm saying.
Jim Harbaugh, then Jim McMahon, and then Mitch Trubisky is fifth.
Oh, my.
Mitch Trubisky, then Eric Kramer, then Billy Wade. So Billy Wade's still seventh. Oof. And he played, 6 years with the Bears in the 60s. I could do this all day, but we got to get to SEC Mike. We'll take a look around the SEC next here on Blaine and Mickey with the one and only SEC Mike.
It's the third and final preseason game, and the Titans welcome Justin Fields and the Chicago Bears to Nissan Stadium. Thank you, NFL, for shortening the preseason and giving us an extra regular season game.
What a catch!
Mike Keith and Coach Mack have the kickoff Saturday night at 6 on your home for Titans football and flagship for Titans radio. 104.5 The Zone.
Michael W. Bratton on Twitter with that SEC podcast. Mike, I don't know if you know this. It's not SEC football, and it might not be the football that, people around here are quite dreaming about, but there's a full slate of college football games this Saturday.
Yeah, I've seen the lineup. Can we call these college football games? I'm not sure. I know UCLA's playing, so they got LSU here in a week or so. So that's about the biggest game on my schedule here.
If let's put UCLA, let's say in the SEC West. Where's UCLA right now if they're an SEC West team?
They'd be about as good as Vanderbilt's reputation in the SEC. I mean, two to three wins a year, I'd say.
Man, that's straight off the top rope. I thought you might have them more like at the Arkansas level or something.
No, you're kidding. No, see, that's the thing with Arkansas. It really bugs me when people down the Razorbacks.
Well, I'm from Arkansas. Trust me, I had a front row seat to years of it.
Well, I got you. But here now under Sam Pittman, I mean, they've got a solid club, and everyone discounts them because of the schedule. Well, they may have the toughest schedule in the nation, but winning 6-7 games with that schedule, I think in the Pac-12 they may win that league.
Well, and Sam Pittman, trust me, if you don't believe in that guy, and I know he wasn't their first choice, and it all happened the way it happened, but he was the right guy for that job for sure.
Absolutely.
Vols haven't named a quarterback yet. What's the holdup on this before they just say, yeah, it's Joe Milton and everybody can move on about their business?
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating that they don't want to tip off Bowling Green, who I believe went 0-9, 0-10, something like that last season, one of the worst teams in college football. So I have no idea other than, maybe you just don't want one of the Hendon Hooker or Harrison Bailey to transfer, but where are they going to go? So, I mean, that's the only holdback I can see here. For whatever reason, Josh Heupel does not want that information out.
Well, we want a lot of information out, and we'll get it all from Mike Bratton, SEC Mike, as he joins us here on Blaine and Mickey.
Well, Mike, I guess there was a meeting amongst the, the other conferences, the Big Ten, the ACC, as well as, and I'm trying to figure out what is their discussion about Pac-12 is, what are they talking about here? Why are they building an alliance against the SEC?
Yeah, I cannot wait to watch this consolation conference go at it and let their champion, they'll have a sacrifice up to the SEC here in a couple of years. I mean, this is a Hail Mary of Hail Marys. With Texas and Oklahoma coming aboard to the SEC, with the SEC getting that ESPN Disney money coming in here in a couple of years, the SEC projects to make as much as the rest of the NCAA combined. So I think this is just the other conferences just trying to do whatever they can to, I wouldn't even say be on par with the SEC, but just be relevant because I think if nothing else, this shows that the SEC went out and got the two programs that are marketable out there in Texas and Oklahoma, and there's just no one else really to gobble up for the rest of the country. So I don't think there's any options for the Big Ten, the Pac-12 outside of Boise and BYU and all this, but what is that really going to do for you? I don't think it does anything for you.
Yeah, that's what I was asking because a lot of people are saying this was a mode to slow down, I guess, the 12-team playoff eventually. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? I don't think this could slow down anything.
No, and I mean, I've always been a proponent of not expanding the playoff just because I think keeping it at a smaller number, the regular season is just so special and unique in college football. But if you're limiting this to 4 teams, then the rest of these conferences got no hope. And I mean, they got no hope now. So it makes no sense to me why they would want to limit it other than to just kind of stick it to the SEC. And all that's going to do is limit, we're only going to have 2, maybe 3 SEC teams in a 4-team playoff. Whereas if you go to the 12, all these other conferences are going to get representatives in there. So, I mean, this makes about as much sense as last year when they tried to move football to spring. I mean, it's poor leadership on their part, whereas in the SEC, it's we've come to find out Greg Sankey, I don't think there's any doubt he's the top dog when it comes to leadership in college athletics at the moment.
The SEC, they rule. They are the king. So with that being said, Oklahoma and Texas, the TV and the money and everything else says 2025. Do you think this could happen sooner than later, like next year or the next couple years?
Yeah, I really do, and it'll happen the day the Big 12, crumbles. If that were to happen in the next year or so, I think it'll happen immediately. So that's you don't want to wish ill things on the Big 12, but I could certainly see that happening. But yeah, I think even if that doesn't happen, I think at the latest Texas and Oklahoma will be in the SEC by 2023. It's just a matter of getting out of those contracts. And if I'm the Big 12, I understand to a degree why you're holding on for dear life to Texas and Oklahoma. But on the other hand, I don't buy it. I mean, get your money and make your moves, because if you're sitting there just trying to hold on to Texas and Oklahoma for 4 more years, the rest of the college landscape is going to pass you by. They need to be proactive, just like the SEC was with getting Texas and Oklahoma. Big 12 needs to be making some moves for their survival. Otherwise, I mean, they're gonna go under as soon as Texas and Oklahoma leaves, because whoever the attractive options are out there, whether it's a Boise, whether it's a BYU or Cincinnati, whoever you want to put in there, UCF, if they don't make those moves soon, I don't think they're going to be able to make them in 3-4 years.
Man, and you know what else is going to piss everybody off? It's going to be legal to actually do the horns down, and it won't be a penalty in the SEC.
Oh, I can't wait for that. You know what?
SEC Mike on with us on Blaine and Mickey. You mentioned this with the Big 12, and it's been kind of quiet. And I guess at this point, whatever they would be doing would be behind closed doors. You don't want your business exposed to the world, so to speak. But, we were talking about this one day. There's never been a better time to be good at football. And, like, right now, Cincinnati's a top 10 team. I mean, I think I'd be on the horn to somebody like Cincinnati and maybe also UCF. They've got 70,000 students at that school, and they've got however many thousands of students that are all under like the age of 40 years old. I mean, I would start with those two, not to mention getting into a possible Boise State or a Houston or some other schools in big markets that have competed at a high level before. Again, Houston at one time was more of a Power 5 type school in the old Southwest Conference, although no one was calling it the Power 5 then, but you know what I mean. But I'd get way more proactive than what they have been.
Right. If they're just sitting here twiddling their thumbs, I mean, I think there's a chance that Cincinnati gets gobbled up by the Big Ten. I could certainly see that. I could see the ACC. I know Florida State would be against it probably, but I think the ACC got to look at not only Central Florida, but potentially even South Florida, because they have a relatively large alumni base as well. So, I mean, that just goes to what I'm saying. I mean, you've got to be making your moves. You got to be making them now. You wait 2, 3, 4 years down the line. I think all these moves will be behind you.
SEC Mike on with us. Hey, what's next for Brian Maurer? What have you heard about that? I know Vol fans just wish that guy the very best in life and in football. Where do you think he goes next?
Yeah, I mean, that's tough to say. I would imagine he probably gets closer to home, and goes down a level, whether that's G5 or FCS, what have you. I was always rooting for him too, because when he got in there, I don't want to compare his arm talent to Brett Favre, but that's kind of what he reminded me of in the other ways. He would just sacrifice his body. He would make the tough throws. He really seems to have some potential. So I'd like to see him go somewhere. Maybe, Hugh Freeze loves collecting him some former SEC quarterbacks. So maybe even Liberty, I could see something like that. But, I wish him well. I don't think it was ever going to work out for him at Tennessee after last season's kind of debacle of him getting in there and just kind of all the turnovers we saw. But certainly wish him well. But I've not heard anything at this point to where he may be headed next. But it's not an ideal time to hit the transfer portal with most of the rosters across the country set.
No, that's absolutely true. You mentioned the Vols opening with Bowling Green. Heck, that's a little over a week away now, and I think a lot of Vols fans would feel comfortable about what might happen in that game. How big is the Pittsburgh game for Josh Heupel in year one and this program as a whole?
I mean, I think it's borderline monumental. I mean, because at Tennessee, I'm a Tennessee grad, so I know all about it, man. We got Derek Dooley and Butch Jones and Jeremy Pruitt, but there always seems to be a game early in those guys' careers where the fans expect to win. And it's not a traditional powered program exactly like Pitt. They're an average at best ACC team. And this is an opportunity for Josh Heupel because there's certainly Tennessee fans that are still wondering how he's the coach of their program at this point in time. If he loses that game, I think, they're not going to be totally out on him, but it's just going to further the doubters. Whereas if he wins that game, gets some momentum, starts his career 3-0, going into Florida with a Florida team that's facing Alabama the week prior, I mean, there's a really good chance that you will have a ton of momentum going into the Swamp. And I'm not sitting here saying they're going to beat Florida. I think that'd be a ridiculous thing to say at this point. But if they did, I mean, he's going to be the most popular Tennessee coach since Phil Fulmer in his heyday. You know what?
SEC Mike on with us at Michael W. Bratton on Twitter, that SEC podcast, if you want to hear him talk about the SEC when he's not on with Blaine and Mickey right now.
Yeah, no doubt. Once they announced that Milton's a starting quarterback, at least we assume that, what are your other, I guess, biggest concerns with Tennessee and their football program?
Well, I mean, it's obviously going to be the defense, and more importantly, I think even just the overall depth. And Tennessee has really, they say in training camp, no news is good news for the most part, and that's certainly been the case. There's been an injury here or there, but Tennessee has avoided that injury bug, so I think that's fantastic news. And that's something that Josh Heupel hit on in his most recent presser, just the flexibility, particularly on that defensive side of the ball, because you don't have full 85 scholarships to work with. So you got to be mixing and maxing pieces there on that defensive side of the ball, and I think that'll be critical. But as I continue to say, I think Tennessee is going to look a lot like Ole Miss did last year, and now that Joe Milton is potentially going to be the starting quarterback, I think that only furthers that. Because at this time last year, nobody was talking up Matt Corral. He was a former All-American in high school, just like Joe Milton, had a huge arm, just poor coaching before that. So Tennessee, I think, I kind of like the move. I didn't think Joe Milton was going to be the guy to be, fully transparent. But I think it's a gamble in the sense that, it's almost like a boom or bust. And that's what Matt Corral was last year, where several games he was lights out. And, just go back to Alabama. Nobody diced up Alabama's defense like Matt Corral did last season. But at the same time, he threw 6 picks against Arkansas. There were 7 turnovers against LSU. They dropped those games. And I kind of see the same thing in Joe Milton, where you're rolling the dice, but if you get the best Joe Milton you can, I think Tennessee can really upset some teams in the SEC. If he has a meltdown, they could lose to just about anybody. But I think it's going to be a really, really fun season for Tennessee fans one way or another.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We're on with SEC Mike. And, you talked about Lane Kiffin a little bit. You mentioned him and Matt Corral. What do you think we're going to see out of Lane Kiffin as well as Mike Leach, the Pirate, in their second seasons? Do you think, Leach is a good fit for the SEC, or did you see him improve throughout the season and get better? Because they started off like gangbusters, but once everybody figured them out, it seems like they kind of, pumped the brakes and slowed down a little bit. So what do you expect out of Kiffin and the Pirate, Coach Leach?
Yeah, people are quick to forget, but at this time last year, we were all saying, well, these first-year coaches in the SEC, good luck. They're not going to win a game because they didn't have spring, and they've got an abbreviated training camp, and there were so many guys going in and out of the lineup with COVID. And, pretty quietly, like you said, Mississippi State, they've had their moments. They almost beat Georgia in Athens late in the season. That was JT Daniels' first start for the Bulldogs, and he threw for nearly 500 yards in that game, and I think they won by 7 points. So I like what I've seen on Mississippi State. The inconsistency on the offense, like you noted there, is a huge question mark. And more than anything, that offensive line, I mean, time and time again, they were facing 3-man rushes, and they were either giving up pressures or sacks, which is completely inexcusable. So the fate of Mississippi State's offense, I like their quarterback. They got 2 good running backs. They've got a number of good receivers, but it's all going to come down to that offensive line. And their defense was, that was a huge question mark, but they were pretty solid last year. So I think Mississippi State's going to be a lot tougher than people suspect. And Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin, I mean, quietly, they led the SEC in rushing last year. And they bring back essentially everybody in that run game. And, we're all touting Matt Corral for good reason. again, if they can avoid the 6 turnover game here, a 7 turnover game there, I think they're going to be in pretty much every football game they're in if they can get that really good Matt Corral to show up week in and week out. So, watch out for the state of Mississippi. I think both those teams are going to be really good this year.
Well, let's go to the state of Georgia. Do you think Georgia has finally closed the gap and can take down Alabama, or at least, go to a national championship? That's just all they're asking there in Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, this has got to be the year, doesn't it, with Florida presumably taking a step back, and I think Alabama's even going to take a slight step back here. And the path to the East championship, the path to Atlanta is very clear for Atlanta. I know they've been kind of banged up, so would not be – I've been saying all off season I think Georgia's going to beat Clemson, but now that Georgia's kind of limping into that game, I'm kind of backing off my confidence. I still think Georgia could win, and it would not surprise me at all if they beat Clemson in the opener, but I am prepared for all the hot takes that Kirby can't coach and Georgia's overrated and all this if they lose the week 1 game. But if they lose that one, that's probably going to be the only game they lose. I think Georgia cruises to the SEC championship. I think they win the SEC. I think they win the national championship. It's time for those 1980 jokes to finally die.
SEC Mike. Hey, on the way out, LSU making a lot of news today with enhanced COVID protocols in order to come to their football games this fall, I guess even on campus at this point. I saw that right before we went on the air. Do you think we will start to see – I think there's already been word out of Tennessee that they will not require that. Do you think we'll see other schools follow suit with LSU on that?
Well, yeah, and I assume you're just talking SEC because Oregon's done it as well. But
yeah, I'm talking
really
SEC, yeah.
Gotcha. I mean, I think it's really going to be a case-by-case basis because I think LSU, maybe they had – I don't know their COVID numbers at the moment, but maybe they felt forced to do that because I'm just going off the reaction here. It does not seem like most of the fans support this decision. So these schools are making a decision that, I think the vast majority of fans disagree with. So I don't think most schools are going to want to do this unless the, health boards or what have you advise them to do so. So I would not be prepared for that to happen until, like I said, these health boards, maybe they have the final say. And if so, then I think we will see it more and more across the SEC.
Yeah, Mike, I tend to agree with you that it would be a city or county board of health or a campus-wide mandate that would put them there. Blaine's got one more to slip in.
Yeah, no,
to
add to that, though, do you think if teams can't play in games that I'm going to use the word fined, and when I say fine, I meant maybe some of their TV money at the end of the year that they're supposed to receive will get taken based off how much, games that they play? Do you think that could ever happen to anybody in the SEC?
Yeah, because I don't think they want to go through what they did last year where, there was times where on Wednesday or Thursday we did not know if a Saturday game was taking place. Right. And I think that's a lot easier to do when there's no fans in the stands, Yeah. So there's so much money at stake that I don't think I think there will be some kind of fines. And it's interesting. I'm just reading into the situation here, but who in the SEC are the teams that are vaccinated? It's Alabama, it's Georgia, it's LSU. It's the teams that I'm looking at it have a chance to win the SEC and maybe a national championship. So, and the teams that don't, they seem to be at the bottom of the standings. So it's interesting to me that the level of buy-in is different across the programs with high expectations and maybe the expectations are different elsewhere. And so these are football decisions at the end of the day. It certainly seems like just on the outside looking in.
Mike, thank you, man. Thank you for the time, people. Again, that SEC podcast, they can catch all the latest episodes and right there on your Twitter at Michael W. Bratton. Thank you, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yes, sir. SEC Mike. Last night I wanted to watch Trevor Lawrence, and I got to watch some of that game, but it was a former Vol receiver that really got my attention. Oh, by the way, and Jameis Winston chucking it all over the place. Let's get into that next. Blaine and Mickey, 104.5 The Zone.
This is where the Titans play. 104.5 The Zone.
Hey, man. He's already cut him, and he signed the one coach that he had to cut, the next day from Iowa, the strength coach. And there have been some other things where he's done and then had to undo things. You watched the game last night. Travis Etienne, they're saying now he's got a Liz Frank injury. You had that, right?
Yeah, I
and
did.
people are saying, this could be. No, you don't just walk away from a Liz Frank injury. Now they're saying it could be more serious. He could miss the whole year. But the initial reports was it just could be a week or something. That's not a week or something injury. I don't know why people are saying that.
Well, and it's kind of here's why I think they say that. Because I thought when I talked to the doctors that I could probably play in the next 2 or 3 weeks. But I had to stay off of it.
Yeah.
And so naturally I was biting at the bit. Like I always talk about, no, I'm playing. So after 2 weeks, I'm like, I'm good, man. I feel great. I go out there and run for a day and look great and come back the next day, and I can't even do toe raises.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So running was off limit. And I was like, what the heck? And so eventually either you're going to have the surgery or you're going to rest it for, let's say, 4 to 6 weeks with not doing anything. And so that means even longer with rest and getting back in shape and, getting your foot up to par and everything else. So I would err on the side of caution. And if he needs surgery, just to move forward and get the surgery, and he just he's just going to have to miss this season.
Right.
And they have some serviceable, other good running backs. So
Got
he does.
Got that undrafted guy who ran all over everybody last year,
Right.
Robinson.
But they have Trayvon Austin, too, who's an explosive
Yep.
type, player. How they're going to use ETN, I think more running back as well as the slot receiver type guy, dynamic player. So, that's unfortunate for them, but, good for everybody else who's going to be playing them. You never want to hurt, wish ill will or injury to anybody, but hopefully he gets well soon. As we see, the Colts are getting well real quick with their foot surgeries. They're practicing.
They're all out there practicing.
Yeah, and I believe both of them, Wentz and Nelson, the guard. Yeah, oof. And they looked, they were moving around based off of Twitter. They looked like they were moving around pretty good. I don't know what surgery they had. Well, man, that looked like it was just a scope, nothing major. Like no real cuts and putting pins and screws
Right.
and stuff like that in
Right.
there.
Things that make the security people at the airport, like when I go through with you and we walk around the corner, everybody goes, "Hey, Blaine."
Yeah.
Yeah, they all know you.
Like, after, the security goes off and they go, well, what? I said, no, it's my plate in my arm. It's not.
Like, no, take your belt off. They're like, it's in my arm, man.
Right. My belt is off. I'm almost
like a major league pitcher out there with your
I
clothes.
can't take off my shirt, man. I don't want people fainting out here, or anything for good reasons there.
Sure. Gun show.
Yeah.
Can't get those guns out of here.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, no. Yeah, quit playing right there. But anyway, the Saints and the Jaguars, Winston looked really good.
He's 9 of 10.
Yeah, I thought he was a better passer. I think it's a better fit with Tyson Hill being more the gadget, change of pace guy who can do multiple things. So I'm always fascinated when he can do a lot of different things. I think he should be the quarterback. And then, offensively, the Jaguars did not look good to me with Trevor Lawrence at the helm. And some I didn't even like some of the play calling. When I say that, I'm talking about like not the actual play call. They ran him into the boundary and he's right-handed and he's rolling left and he has to throw across it. And I go, well, why did they call that? Like he's not left-handed.
No,
he's not Tua. So that shows me awareness of where you're at on the field as a play caller. I know that's not Urban Meyer, but he's trying to let the guys call. I mean, he's evaluating everything. So those are little bitty things, let alone their team needs to be, they got to get better on offense. But if they get it, they have some skilled players on the offense. So hopefully you just get after them on the O-line and slow that development of Trevor Lawrence early in the season.
You always talk about, just the speed of the NFL, and there's practice speed, and then there's exhibition game speed, and then there's game speed, and then there's playoff speed.
Yeah.
And those are all real things. On that play you're talking about where everybody goes to right and he boots and fakes, rolls back to the left.
Into the boundaries, so it's a short field. So what are your options to throw, first of all? Then you're throwing across your body. None of this sounds good to me.
Did you see how fast that defensive end closed on him?
Oh, yeah. It's
wham!
No, you just did the wham. Imagine putting a piece of meat in front of a alligator. That's how quickly his jaws will close. That's how quickly that guy went after him, like he was a piece of meat. Yeah, and it's scary. People don't understand the real difference in the NFL is the guys in the trenches and how fast they can actually run.
Oh, gosh.
You got a guy, skill guy, 4.4 is 4.4. 4.3 is 4.3. But when you see a guy in his first 5 yards is running stride for stride with a 4.3 guy, and he weighs 300-something pounds, you go, uh-oh, this is different. Yeah, here's a good example. When we're at practice, they used to have me or other DB skill guys rush the offensive lineman. And they said, we just want your first 3 steps because your get-off is as fast as the elite pass rushers.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And if you can block a little DB with the speed,
right.
I think you can't block them, but with the speed and be in front of them and hold base, then you'll be fine. Mm-hmm. I mean, and it shows out that some of these guys, their first, their get-off and their first 2 or 3 steps is pretty impressive for a big man. I was impressed. I was impressed with the Saints defensive line too, and the second string guys. They were hunting. I'm like, woo. Is there? I mean, maybe because it's on turf, it just looked a little faster.
It looked comically fast to me. There were times where Lawrence, if he held the ball, if he patted it more than once, somebody was in his face.
Yeah, he's looking too long. He's holding to the ball too long. Somebody needs to just say, hey, this. You need to anticipate that the guy's going to be open and throw it before he breaks on his out cut or in cut or whatever. He's waiting till they're open, just like he was in college. Somebody needs to tell him that. Because then I'd start getting rid of that thing like a hot potato.
I would too.
And be like, oh, you threw an interception. Well, he was supposed to cut right there. He was supposed to turn around and look. I'm like, next, start hitting him in the head with the ball.
They'll turn.
Boom. And they'd be like, man, get your head around.
All right, Lucas is telling us we got to go, but tip of the cap to Marquez Callaway because that rascal was buck wild balling last night.
Oh, it doesn't surprise me at all.
Me
I was shocked that he didn't get drafted.
Me too.
2 years ago. I mean, guy 6'2", can return punts. That shows how athletic he is. Most of the tall receivers that are back there returning kicks like that.
Right.
And, he was a good route runner. He's a really good athlete, a real good kid, too. So, yeah, it was good to see that happened. Now he's going to be starting with Michael Thomas out. That's opened the window for him to be a starter, and now he's going to impact the game. All you have to do is seize your opportunity, Mickey, and he's doing that, and he deserves it.
No doubt. We'll get into some Titans seizing their opportunity, who was on the field, who wasn't. We'll give you some practice updates. Also, I think Lucas got a little audio from Shane Bowen. We'll hear that in the second hour as well, talking about just the mindset of this defense and where they are now. You'll want to hear from the Titans DC, all coming up in the second hour, and Coach Mack. It's coming up too. Blaine and Mickey, 104.5 The Zone.
Dawn Davenport is on the sidelines for the biggest games in college football. Her access to the SEC is unmatched. And not to mention, she should have been on the U.S. volleyball team.
No, I never once would insinuate that, trust me.
To 3HL with Brett Doherty, Dawn Davenport, and Ron Slay. Today, starting at 3 on 104.5 The Zone.
Listen up. about 20 minutes. Titans have been off the practice field for a little longer than 20 minutes today, but not practicing today, although he was in uniform. And I saw Teron Davenport had him, like, video of him running. He was just running sprints.
Who?
Julio Jones.
Oh,
Not
Julio.
Julio.
Oh, he was running.
He was running. I
Oh,
saw
okay.
it with my
So
own eyes.
So he
There's
can
video of
run.
it.
Okay.
He can run.
Yeah, the Julio watch will begin.
Are you nervous about him?
No, I'm not nervous about his ability. I am nervous that he's not practicing and getting the timing down with his quarterback. That makes me. People just, this is not flag football. This is not little league. You can't. Oh, I'm just go out here and run right. Well, you may run routes differently. He likes to read your body language, and I'm not sure they've already gotten that down.
Right.
But I would sure like to see him practice for more than a 3 or 4 days before a game. To build up that kind of chemistry. A.J. Brown, I'm not too concerned with just because I think they know each other.
Mm-hmm.
And if not, they can have a conversation and it's over.
Right.
So, yeah, when you're on a new team, it's a little bit different. I just feel like you should be out there. I don't know. He could be out for a good reason, but hopefully he'll be back out there sooner or later and he gets back all the way healthy.
This from Jim White. He said Derrick Henry had his busiest practice day so far on Monday. Did all kinds of stuff in practice. Derrick Henry, busy.
So he did.
Practice.
He did team.
Yep. And he and Big Jeff were chirping at each other today a little bit.
Oh, they were?
Yeah. So he was out there late, and Jim Wyatt's writing about practice, and again, it happens while we're here, so that's something we can't do right now. But Jim Wyatt said, Big Jeff pointed out, hey, normally you're not out here in this time at practice, and so they had some words.
Yeah, I don't think it was verbalized like that.
No, it wasn't. I'm making it radio friendly,
Yeah. Yeah, well, what happens is Big Jeff is going hard, and all of a sudden Henry comes through there not paying attention to who's the running back, and all of a sudden they may have ran into each other, and Henry didn't like it. And Big Jeff said, hey, man, this is how we roll. Mm-hmm. Sorry, you better get your pad level down, big guy. Yeah. Yeah. We're not bound down just going to open the floodgates and let you just run right through the defense untouched. That's not how it works. You got to work, too. You got to get to work. Don't be mad we thudded you up. Keep those legs churning, as Coach Mack would say, and keep it moving. Mm-hmm.
Well, he's keeping it moving. This is, again, per Jim Wyatt. A number of Titans returned to the practice field. A.J. Brown, there's video of him doing stuff in individual. Jeff Swaim, Nate Davis back. Ben Jones back. There's 2 offensive line starters. Danico Autry, who I've been wanting to see. Like, I was more excited maybe about Danico Autry just because the thought of Danico Autry and Big Jeff together makes me smile. He's back.
And Bud Dupree. Man. Oh, I need to ask him if he's related to a friend of mine.
Billy Joe Dupree?
Nah, not Billy Joe.
You're a Cowboys fan growing up. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, Billy Joe Dupree. He's a tight end, right?
No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. There it is again. Marcus Johnson back today. Matthias Farley back. And Kendall Lamb, a guy who has a chance also to be a starter, maybe at right tackle on this offensive line.
Ooh, the band is back together. I'm liking what I'm hearing. It's on its way. They got, 3 weeks till the first game? Regular season game?
2.5.
2.5, okay.
I guess, yeah.
All right, well, good. They're revving up. The big boys, the starters, they're getting ready. Like it.
Let's take a quick call from Wayne here, and then on the other side, before we get to Coach Mack, I wanted you to hear from Shane Bowen. We're all liking what we're seeing from the defense. He got into that a little bit yesterday when he spoke to the media. So we'll hear from Wayne, then we'll hear from Shane. It's Wayne and Shane.
Oh, the Wayne and Shane show
with Blaine.
Oh.
Wayne, thanks for calling the Mark Spain hotline.
Oh, my.
Hey,
you're going on Zany's next week.
We go to Tampa Bay and we win.
Yes, they won in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, it was.
Yes, sir, we win in Tampa Bay.
Right.
You know what? You can break out Tom Brady or any of the guys, Baltimore. I don't care who you break out against us. We can win. We have the team to win.
Yes, we do. This team hopefully be on this road to the SB Super Bowl.
You know what, Blaine? You was a major contributor. You was up front. You was 3-down winner guy.
Well, I thank you.
You know,
they got some guys now. I think they can get it done.
I appreciate you getting in on talking up the team.
Wayne, thank you for the call, man, and we appreciate you listening for sure. Wayne's excited about the defense. So is Shane. This is Shane.
And Swain.
We'll play it for Blaine. Yeah, and Jeff Swaim. I can't stop. Here's Shane Bowen.
Oh, my.
Yeah, I think just the energy, the passion, having fun out there, flying around, I think it's evident. You see the guys excited on the sidelines for their teammates. We've been preaching the foundation, our identity, setting the standard, and from top to bottom on our roster on the defensive side, I think guys are trying to play up to it right now. So it's been encouraging. We got to continue, like every day. Like we got to come out here today and do the exact same thing. It can't just be Sunday. It doesn't happen that way. So every day we're focused on continuing to build that identity and have that mindset.
Blaine, I wrote down the word identity because that doesn't matter if it's your 2 or your 3s. It doesn't matter who they're playing against. They've had an identity in this preseason so far. And again, we haven't seen Danico Autry. I get it. We haven't seen Bud Dupree. I get it. But the guys who are out there, they're swarming the ball. They're getting after the quarterback. The D line has been relentless. The pass rush from the outside linebackers is good. The coverage has been good. They've been tipping balls and getting turnovers. I don't care who's on the field. That's an identity.
Yeah, I love it because, I think I probably was one of the few people early on saying that the defense is dominating the offense, and there's a reason why. And it's because they set the standard. This is how we're going to play, and it resonates throughout the whole defense. Then regardless of first, second, or third team, as you were mentioning, in this preseason, it's a standard. And the starters, whether they're playing or not, they practice. They're holding the backups up to that standard because guess what? They're going to need them. Yeah. They're going to need them throughout the season. So I really like what I'm seeing, and it's carrying over. The next step is let's see if it carries over. I know we have one more preseason game, but if it carries over to the regular season, and I believe it will. And it's funny how once you start getting pressure on the quarterback from outside, inside, all of a sudden the secondary starts to look, they're playing aggressive. They're doing, because it works hand in hand together, as I said last year, and they weren't getting pressure and the guys weren't covering, so they start pressing to force plays and make plays when just let those plays just happen and come to you. And it will because of the pressure that they're putting on the quarterback, regardless of who's out there from the front four or who's blitzing or not. It doesn't even matter. Everybody looks the same. To take off jersey numbers and names, they are hunting. Yeah. And that defense, they haven't changed. They haven't lost a step. And, I love hearing Big Jeff. I don't know what happened. I'm assuming that he thudded up Henry and Henry didn't like it. Yep. Guess what? We don't bow down to the king. No, you the king against everybody else. Against us, we gonna make you better, and we're gonna have a standard on here, and we're gonna thud you up. Now, nobody's diving at his knees or anything like
They're
that.
being smart.
Right, but we're gonna thud you up.
Right.
Hey, you need to work on getting your pad level down, king. Yeah, so that's how it has to be, out of mutual respect.
Yeah, I like hearing that about Big Jeff too, because you want that guy to just take off because it seems like he's got all the ability to do it.
Oh, I'm waiting, and it's funny. Everybody's counting the horse before he's arrived in the totality of a player. He has all the talent. It's like saying Justin Fields. Oh, he's going to be a great quarterback. Well, we don't know quite yet. Let's see him do it first.
Right.
Yeah, let's see Simmons get 5-6 sacks in a season, let alone continue to do what he's doing in the rush game. And that may happen now that you have Autry and some other players around him to help free up one-on-ones. And I feel like he will, but you definitely have to get after the quarterback. So I want to see him rush the passer a little bit more polished in his technique. And if that happens, everything that everybody's saying, that will happen. And he's got the motivation, too, and the drive. So he has all the characteristics and the talent. So let's see if it can actually happen. Sometimes, people said that about Clowney, I'm sure, when he came out, first pick of the draft. He'll never live up being the first pick of the draft now. It'll never happen. So hopefully it will with Big Jeff.
No doubt. We got Big Mac coming up. Coach Mac, right on the other side of this break. He's been at practice. We'll ask him what he saw today. Titans got one exhibition game left, and it's time to roll in the regular season. And the latest thoughts from Coach Dave McGinnis. That's next on Blaine and Mickey.
The Titans and Bears end the preseason together in Nashville. Kickoff is Saturday night at 6 on your home for Titans football. 104.5 The Zone.
A lot of employees really don't want to see you or talk to you.
weeks into the preseason, and I get it, it's twos against twos, and there's not really game planning and all that stuff, but I will say this. Shane Bowen spoke yesterday. He talked about the identity of this defense, and to me, an identity is an identity, Coach. It doesn't matter if your twos are playing or your threes. I love what I've seen from this defense so far, and I love the identity of the defense.
Yeah, good afternoon, guys. Just got off the practice field. Absolutely, but they've been talking about this identity and trying to establish it with the people that they brought back in, and then, trying to reaffirm it during the off season. And we saw it all during the off season. And, you got a guy sitting right there that knows that you have to establish an identity on defense before you're going to be able to do anything. And you do it as a group, and everybody has to buy into it. I think the biggest thing that I enjoyed out of that last game, guys, was when Mike Vrabel, told the vets that weren't dressed out, you have a choice. You can either fully dress and stand here and support these guys, or if you're not dressed, you can watch the game from the dressing room on television. And of course, everybody dressed out, but just to see the excitement that the vets have when these younger players are making the plays. And then like today was a very spirited practice. The last 2 days, there has been a lot of energy at these practices, and that's not something that's false. It's not false enthusiasm, and that's the only way that you can play defense. It's the only way you can play.
Coach, I heard you talking about that actually on the broadcast where you and Mike Keith were talking about guys being dressed, and you said, I did the same thing. You said, I want guys involved.
Well, yeah, and especially, when you get down to this game, because now we're approaching the real thing. The first ball games are like the first two when I was doing it, and especially in the home ball games, I wasn't too worried about it. But when you're on the road, it's just you against the whole city, right? And so you want all your group there, and they took everybody down there because the practices were really beneficial for the week that we were down there. And so, it's a team thing, and everybody was involved in it. And you have to win ball games. You have to win games, but you have to have an underground swell of a lot of attitude before you ever can coalesce and come together to win games. And I like what I see, what they are doing in that aspect of it.
Coach Dace McGinnis on with us for his weekly visit, brought to you by Farm Bureau Health Plans. You need great health care coverage at an affordable price. Let Farm Bureau Health Plans coach you through it. They got you covered, just like Coach Mack has us covered right now on Blaine and Mickey.
Well, Coach Mack, it's kind of good to hear that Vrabel's not at practice with the COVID situation, that practice kind of turned up a notch. That shows you that they're being pro, and they know what they're supposed to do to go out there and play at the Titan way and, bringing the intensity, knowing that the preseason is coming to an end for some of these vets.
That's a great point, Blaine, and you know this, and that is very, very important. And I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where the head coach has been absent.
No.
I've been in that situation when I was on Mike Ditka's staff, and he suffered a heart attack during the season. Oh. And and of course it was during the season, so we already had our roster set. But you know who sets the tone when the head coach is not there for an unusual situation is the vets. All right? The vets set the tone, and they say, hey, look, this is not like a substitute teacher day, where you can kind of just go off the rails. We need to concentrate on what we're concentrating on. Craig Ackerman did a great job of being the guy and plus he's got two, former head coaches on his staff, and the coaching staff really did a nice job. It was very spirited, and as you say, to me, what that shows, first of all, it shows the right type of leadership that you have on your coaching staff, and it shows the right type of leadership that you have in your locker room. That's what I took from that, Blaine, and you're completely right on that.
How much do you take away? The defense is playing the 2 days that I was out at practice, they impressed me,
right?
During the last couple of weeks, and then they're playing really well in the preseason games. How much do you take away from that? Not giving up a touchdown, I don't want to jinx them regardless, but they're playing with that kind of tenacity and flying around, but also smart and doing their responsibilities. So how much do you kind of pull away as a coach looking at the tape saying, this is going to carry over for sure in the regular season?
Well, a lot, because that's what you've been preaching this whole off season, and that's what you've been working on every day in practice. The days you were there, it has been just the same. And Blaine, I know you can speak to this, and I will speak to this for our listeners. You've been involved with some great defenses in the National Football League, and so have I. And I tell you one thing that was always a real common trait of the great defenses I've been involved with. They were loud. They talked. They talked consistently and constantly about what was going on, and they brought the energy, first of all, by just, everybody getting to the ball, but they also brought the energy by communicating with each other, between snaps and before the snap and during what was going on. If you've got a silent defense, you're always concerned as a coach, because then they're trying to think about what to do. Now this group is playing fast, but they are talking. They are a loud defense, and I like that.
Yeah, Coach. I mean, man, I get pumped up and jacked up being a defensive guy and you're a defensive guy just to see how they're practicing and then it's carrying over into the game, whether whoever's starting at the first string, second string, or the third string guys. It's a culture and it's a climate that is encouraged by the leadership, not only from the coaches but from the leaders on the team. So I'm really excited about playing the Bears this weekend because Fields is going to be the starting quarterback, and he is a really good athlete, as we all know, and he can move around and scramble a lot. And I think that's kind of preparing them. You could tell me for the early in the season when they faced Kyler Murray as well as Russell Wilson early in the season, where these guys who can ad-lib and make the play longer. I think this is a good precursor to helping them get ready for the regular season.
Well, that's a great point. And again, you make a great point, Blaine, for a couple of reasons. First of all, we are going to play some off-schedule quarterbacks early in this season, that can really do damage. Going into that Atlanta game, I don't think they did not prepare for Felipe Franks, and he got away from that third and fourth group. And so they will have worked on some things this week, clearly, with an off-schedule quarterback. And the point you make, Justin Fields, I think, is going to be a nice quarterback in this league. But the biggest thing he has going for him right now is his athleticism. And this is going to be a very good precursor is the right word for what they're going to face. And I think they'll be more prepared for that type of quarterback than they were when Felipe Franks showed up late in that ball game in Atlanta.
I don't know if you've been watching, and I'm not completely accurate all the way around on this because I haven't watched all the games, but it seems like the AFC is a stronger conference in the preseason than the NFC. I don't know if you guys, as coaches, staffs ever kind of look at that, or does that even mean anything at this point?
Well, I've really been watching. I've really been watching who our first three opponents are going to be in my preseason games. Watching. What is going on. I think it's hard to tell overall about the strengths of the conferences in the preseason. I just know that what I have been watching with the teams that we are going to play early in the season, they've got some decent depth, because that's what you're watching right now, Blaine, in the first 2 weeks is depth of these football teams. And as well as I do, once that season starts and you get that active roster set and you get that Sunday roster set, you've got to have depth available that can come in and stay on par with what's going on in a real game.
Well, Coach Mack is always on par, giving us the Mack attack.
Coach, what would your strategy have been on a 3-game preseason as far as how much you would play, and not somebody maybe coming back from injured, but a healthy starter, because we've seen a bunch of different teams handle it a bunch of different ways. How do you think you would have done it?
Well, I don't know. I think it would depend on 3 factors, Mickey. The age of my team, the health of my team, and how many players, and specifically how I wanted to develop the younger players. As far as, because you've only got 3, you need. I think they need all the time on the field you can get. Now, the thing that also I think is a mitigating factor in the coach's process is you're going to have an extra week before you play. You basically have a bye week before the season this year. And so that, to me, figures into it quite a bit, too. And I think all of those factors are different for each team. That's why I really believe you are seeing the different approaches by different clubs this year. So I think that would have been a decision I would have started making, depending on where my club was in some of those circumstances and those instances that I just brought up, Mickey.
That's good stuff, Coach. All the factors. I appreciate that. I wanted to ask you this, too, because as people watch preseason games, and the discussion starts to become like, okay, they got to cut down so many people on this date and this date. What were the discussions like in an NFL building between coaches, GM, staff, scouts, everybody who talks about these guys, as far as cutting one guy versus another and the chances one guy could maybe pass through waivers and get to your practice squad and another guy couldn't? Did that come up? Because it comes up with broadcasters.
Mickey.
Yeah.
Mickey, those are very detailed discussions, and all of those factors figure in. And I'll tell you what figures into it too. I mean, your pro personnel department is big in that because they're scanning all of the rosters, constantly, so they know when somebody's looking for something. Like right now, Atlanta's looking for a backup quarterback, right? I mean,
Yes,
know
sir.
that. And so that goes on with all the other 31 teams that the Titans pro personnel department will be looking at, and that factors into it. And then plus how close you think the two people that you're thinking about, that you're comparing to one another, go. It also depends about the numbers at certain positions that you have on your roster right now. It depends on the injured players and when you think they are coming back, how long their timeline is as to what you might keep early. It also depends on how much you think you can get by with going through the first week and then picking up or bringing back some veterans as to where, their contract's not guaranteed through the season. All of that stuff is gone through in great detail with a fine-tooth comb daily right now.
Man, good stuff. Inside information here from Coach Mack on Blaine and Mickey.
Well, with all that being said, at the running back position, your man Sargent, who you mentioned a couple, games ago, saying, hey, we better watch out for this kid. Man, watch out is an understatement. He has an outside shot of making the roster, depending on what you were talking about, whether, some guys are healthy or not. When you're referring to Darrington Evans, if he can stay healthy. And then on another note, as a coach and a scout, how are you viewing Darrington Evans with his injury history here in his first 2 years in the league? And I don't know if it's major or not. It didn't seem to be, but, how much do you take that into account as well?
Well, I mean, first of all, the injuries that he's had, none of them were his fault, right? I mean, they weren't. So it's just, whether a guy just has bad luck. I mean, the hamstrings you could understand because that went on around the league for a lot of rookies when you did not have the preseasons and you did not have the off-season work. You could understand that soft tissue. The knee, with non-contact, that's just bad luck. So I don't think you hold that against him. What you do, though, and I told Mike Keith this before in our broadcast, when we opened the broadcast, he asked me what positions would I be looking at, in the game against Tampa. And I said, the running back position, because 1 and 2 would not be in there. So 2, 3, and 4 move up to 1, 2, and 3. And now let's see who takes advantage of it. And right now, Sargent has taken, look, he's done nothing to hurt his chances. I will say that. Has he done enough to make the football team or to put himself in that conversation? I can't say that because I haven't been in those personnel meetings, but I know this, just during the ball games that he's had a chance, he's done nothing to hurt himself. And, not only playing, from the running back position, both running and catching, but also on special teams. After that touchdown that he caught on that roll boot, I mean, he was on the kickoff team the next play. Yeah. So he has done nothing, Blaine, to hurt his chances. I will say that.
Now, you could have been, that you missed out on this, but have you watched him in pass blocking sets, and how well has he done pass blocking, whether it's at practice or in the games?
Still needs to work on it, just like all backs coming out of college do. Two things that starting players are really not asked to do in collegiate football. Running back is not asked to block very much at all because most of it's 5-out stuff, most of it's quick stuff, and plus the blitz schemes aren't as involved. The protection schemes don't change as quickly at the line of scrimmage and aren't as involved as they are in the National Football League. That's number one. Learning who to block is one of the bigger things. Okay, that and then nobody that comes here except that's why Racy McMath played on special teams at LSU because there was just a line of receivers ahead of him and he wanted to get on the field. But most guys that come into this league have not done a lot of special teams work because the punt team is completely different. In college, it's not the same punt formations. It's not the same punt rules. that you have in the collegiate game. And so it's completely different in those two areas. But you ask me about his pass protection, still needs work.
Coach Mack giving us the Mac Attack. Hey, I know you love to take phone calls, Coach, and Calvin in Cheatham County is on line 1, and he wants to talk to Coach Mack. Calvin, welcome in and say hey to Coach Mack.
I always appreciate y'all's time, fellas. I just want to ask Coach, man. I mean, we're seeing his struggles. The Dylan Radens, however you say his last name. I'm sure he's a great fella. Brett, I mean, do you see him coming around? I mean, would this be? I know you're a former head coach for the Cardinals and everywhere else, man. Would that be frustrating knowing that the GM spent a second-round pick on something that's not necessarily going to be available to help the team right off the rip? And you have a blessed day.
No, not at all. Not at all. Thanks for the question, and it's legit. But look, you got to have patience with all of these rookies. I mean, it's just like I had a friend at Cincinnati call me and say, Coach, did you watch this Jamar Chase in college? Is he any good? Because he had 3 drops the other day, right? And I said, stop. S-T-O-P. Just give these guys time to soak. They need time to soak. I mean, that is just the truth. And Radens has been put into a situation because of the injuries. I mean, John Robinson and Mike Vrabel brought 17 offensive linemen to camp because they knew that they were going to manage Taylor, they were going to manage Roger Saffold, they were going to manage Ben Jones. So they brought 3 full lines plus 2 extra just so that they could be settled in. Well, one position group always hits the injury bug. It's just the offensive line for the Titans this year. So now Dylan Radens, not only is he a rookie, but he's having to play multiple positions because their numbers are down. Here's the other thing. Dylan Radens played 1 game in his final year because of COVID. Played 1 game against Central Arkansas, I believe. And then when I saw him out there practicing against Tampa Bay, I told Mike Keith when he was playing guard and Ndamukong Suh was lined up on him, I said, I'll bet Ndamukong Suh wasn't playing at Central Arkansas. Okay? So he's got to learn. He's on a learning curve right now. He's going to help this team this year. He's on a learning curve, but part of learning in the National Football League, part of learning is painful. It's painful. It's painful at any position. I mean, because you are put into a completely different world now, and it's a timeline that you have to continue to keep grinding on, and you have to be willing to fail before you ever learn how to excel as a player in this league.
Coach, before we let you go, we know that you're a guy who's certainly spent time around Floyd Reese, and we lost Mr. Reese this week. He was special to a lot of people. Just wanted to give you a chance to maybe give a thought or two on a guy that we know that you knew well.
He was an NFL football guy through and through. I knew Floyd in '86 when he was still a linebacker coach down at the Houston Oilers. And then, when I came here, he was the GM. When I was hired here, he was always, very, very good to me. He was a pro. He was a professional, and he understood it. He loved the National Football League. He loved the Oilers/Titans. Look, much respect for Floyd. He was a friend. He was a colleague, and he was a guy that, as I say, the ultimate respect that I can pay to anybody that works in this league as a player or a coach or an administrator is to say they were a true pro. Floyd Reese was a pro's pro. God bless him, and God bless Sally, and his family. We lost a really, really good person way too soon.
Coach, thank you for sharing your thoughts, and thank you, as always, for just more great stuff. We love talking to you every week.
Guys, it's always my pleasure. See you.
Yes, sir, Coach Mack, giving us the Mac Attack, as always. When we come back, Todd, a question we've been wondering about timing with Julio Jones and these vets maybe who haven't played too much, offense, not a lot of snaps together. Todd Downing addressed that after practice today. We'll hear from the Titans OC next here on Blaine and Mickey, 104.5 The Zone.
Jason Martin and Ramon Foster might have the mics, but the show is about you, the fam.
You guys are the show. We have some microphones. That means you can hear us. We want to hear you. We want to know you. You guys are just like us. Just like us. We might be in a different position in terms of our voice can be heard by more people. You know what else it doesn't mean? It doesn't mean that your voice doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that ours matters any more than yours does. We just love you guys.
J. Martin Ramon, tomorrow, starting at 6 on 104.5 The Zone.
doubt. Here I go again. Now that's in my head. I keep saying I can't stop saying no doubt. No doubt.
It's okay.
I love the band No Doubt as well. And I have no doubt that this will be interesting right now from Todd Downing talking about how guys can have, get things down without a lot of reps.
Yeah, they're both vets. They're both pros. They handle their job with extreme professionalism. I'm confident that they will do everything that's needed to be on the same page by the time we kick off. And as I mentioned earlier, as Julio is allowed to do more and more, we'll take full advantage of those opportunities. And they know that we have ways to go before we're clicking on all cylinders. So I'm confident that their professionalism will shine through.
So he's saying, hey, they're vets. Let's just trust the vets. Is that good? They're vets.
Well, I mean, he really doesn't have a choice but to, believe in that. And what he's saying is they're pros pro. Hopefully we get it sooner than later, but as soon as he starts to practice, that'll be a focus of emphasis, and they'll get it done. But us not knowing the injury and not really knowing how long he was going to be out, to me, was a concern because we were just kind of unaware. They could at least give us the hockey analogy, lower body or upper body.
I know.
We have no idea what the extent of his injury is. So, yeah, you can only talk about so much and go over film about what you're going to do, but until you're in the heat of the fire, do you know what you're really going to do? Because those things kind of change, and that's player to player, really. The coaches can only take you so far. Ultimately, you have to take ownership that this is our group, and this is what we do as an offensive when we get out here, and we're only the one. The coaches can't execute and can't play for us. We have to do it. So that's really the concern. But once they start practicing, as we see, a lot of the vets are now starting to practice.
Yep.
Right here at the tail end of the preseason, they feel like they have almost 2 weeks to get ready. I think that's plenty of time to get the timing down to make sure everybody's on the same page.
And what Blaine is referring to, if you're just joining us, Derrick Henry had his busiest practice yet per Jim Wyatt. A.J. Brown was back, did some individual stuff. Jeff Swain back, Nate Davis back, Ben Jones back, Marcus Johnson back, Kendall Lamb also. So a bunch of these guys back on the practice field.
Good to hear.
Yeah, that's real good. Lucas, I know you sent me a list of audio you've got. We've all been wondering about this backup quarterback situation, Woodside and Barkley. Apparently, Todd Downing also got into that today. Let's hear what he says about the backup quarterback battle.
Great to watch those guys work together. They complement one another. They bounce ideas off of one another. It's really a good dynamic in the room. There's no distraction because of the competition. Speaking specifically to Matt, I think he's done a nice job of working hard to be more comfortable with the system, with the verbiage. They understand that the Tampa week caused a little bit of a kind of diluted exposure for them in the playbook, if you will. There's some plays that Matt went out and ran that he didn't run in practice, and same with Logan. So as those guys get more comfortable with the system, Matt in particular, I think that competition will continue to get tighter and tighter, and it'll be fun to see who comes out ahead.
Logan Woodside, Blaine, we talk about this. He's like Twinkies after a nuclear war. He just keeps outlasting everything around him. But he's met his match with Matt Barkley. And we know who Barkley is. He's been in the league 7-8 years now. But he's, as you have pointed out a couple times, the guy's been here like 2 weeks, and he's really done a nice job running the offense. Mm-hmm. Like in 2 weeks, okay, yeah, I got it.
I don't know if there's some correlation of where, another offense that he ran, but to get up to speed that's quickly and then now make it a competition, to me, leads to he will be the backup. And guess what? The worst case scenario, Woodside is on the practice squad, or that, quarterback that doesn't dress, and, for COVID situations, he's still going to be available. Barkley looked that good to me in Tampa Bay on some of those throws, and I want to see Woodside throw it down the field. Like, let's see you let it fly. Open it up a little bit. Play a little looser instead of structured, and not to make a mistake.
Right.
Sometimes you can overcoach that, and that gets stuck in the quarterback's head and feel like, okay, I'm going to still make the team if I play conservative and don't make mistakes and play within the offense. Well, I think Barkley's a guy that's really confident. Hey, I'm a slinger. Like, I don't know if Woodside would have made that throw to Kinsey. Kinsey. I mean, I just don't. I don't know. But that was a rope, a great catch. But man, what a great throw. So I want to see Woodside do some of those things as well. He's been here long enough. Let's see it.
Are you worried if you cut Woodside that Arthur Smith would be like, hey, man, I'm going to go ahead and cut Josh Rosen, who they actually signed today, and I'm going to go ahead and bring Logan in because I know he knows my stuff.
Well, you don't ever worry about another organization. You worrying about your organization and about who's the best player to help you win. And right now, I think it's probably a draw, but I'd lean towards Barkley because I think he'll get better over time. First of all, they've already picked up Josh Rosen, the Falcons, so – yeah, I'm never, if I'm a GM or a coach, I'm never worried about somebody getting picked up because if we decide to go in a different direction, then maybe he'll be out there later down the road. If not, we keep it moving. He does know the offense, but Barkley's picked it up pretty quickly and has done a solid job, too, at the same time. So always trying to get your best 53. If he's not including that, I'm not worried about somebody picking him up because he knows the offense and worked with the player before. That's regardless. You can't think like that. If you do, then you're thinking like a loser.
I like that. And the other thing is this, and you've brought this up. You want veteran backups everywhere. On a team that can win a Super Bowl, you've said this. I want as many vets as I can get. I need vets.
Now they got something left in the tank, because we're gonna need all men on deck. Help you get to that Super Bowl. Some guys gonna have to play 2 or 3 games to help you through the 4th while your superstars are banged up or injured.
17-game season. We'll get on this all again tomorrow as we join you on Wednesday. But right now, it's time for 3HL next here on The Zone.
Happy Tuesday! And what, Mickey?
Peace.
Interaction with other listeners while watching your favorite Zone shows. It's 104.5 The Zone TV live on YouTube and Twitch.